Hey folks, we're going to talk Clarity Act now. And for a couple of days now, I've been hearing things about them slowing it down, trying to push it back. And it's going to be the conversation around the Clarity Act, I think, it may be the impetus for the next shutdown, right? They want to push it back. They already did it successfully once last year toward the end of the year, which is why we didn't get a Clarity Act at the end of the year. The timing just wasn't there anymore with that Schumer shutdown. And so now we have a similar thing taking place. You might have been hearing banks say silly things like, oh my God, your community bank's not going to be able to survive without these deposits, because they don't want you to be able to deposit your money, your value, somewhere else where you can earn yield. They want the banks to be the only place. And believe me, they're not worried about community banks. They're worried about their big banks, because the same rule applies both ways. And who's got the bigger deposits? The big banks, right? So they want to be the only place for you to go to be able to go to earn yield. Let's say on your savings account, on your CDs, on your treasury investments, your checking accounts, that kind of thing. You know, because some people get interest on their checking accounts. So they want to be the only place where you can legally go and do that. Just the way it's always been. They don't want things to change. They like the little, scam they got going on right now. So the Genius Act already codified into law the fact that you can earn yield in different places. On exchanges, in wallets, that kind of thing, on DeFi protocols. And banks don't like it. They don't want to compete for your money. So they're fighting it tooth and nail. They want to re-legislate the Genius Act, which is already codified into law, and have another bite at the apple, and then come in and take that piece out. Or they don't get to do it. But I guess they must not have read The Art of the Deal, because this is what Donald Trump does. You just recently may have heard that he's capping credit card interest rates at 10%. Maybe you didn't hear it, but I think it's on the 24th of January 2026 where that goes into effect. If banks continue to charge more than that, they'll be in violation of the law, and he'll pursue other avenues with them. But this is what he's doing. You know how he does it. Well, I want this over here, and you don't want to give it to me. Well, then I'll take it from over here where I know it's going to hurt you, because these credit card companies via these banks and large investment financial institutions have been charging us upwards 29-30% APR. I mean, that's loan shark level interest rates. It just is. And we've just been living with it. But I can tell you right now, in the 80s and the 90s, at least when I was financially conscious, it wasn't like that back then. But as the 2000s came into play, the late 90s, the 2000s, and on to today, oh my God, they've gone crazy with this stuff, and it's the norm now. It won't be long before it's 50% and up, and they like it like this. So who's that going to hurt more? I mean, that's going to hurt those financial institutions. Here's the thing: Trump always, gives you the yin and the yang. Well, give me this, or I'll do this. And right now, he's just saying it's for 1 year. If they want to play hardball, he'll just make it permanent, at least for the next 3 years of his administration. And who knows, he might even get them to codify that into law again and bring him back those usury laws so that because it's usury, right? They're stealing from us, what they typically do, and they like it this way. So he's giving them something to chew on to try to make sure that they bend the knee, so to speak, for this Clarity Act. And allow other players to come in and compete for your deposits, which is how it should be, right? A free market system. We should be able to shop around and see who's going to give me the most money for the amount of money I'm willing to custody with them or to invest with them. So let's take a quick look at some of the announcements I want to share now. A couple days ago, this is how it started. King Valix over here was reporting things like crypto market structure markup moved to the last week of January. It was supposed to happen on the 15th. It's the 13th today, and they were already working on pushing it back like 2-3 weeks ago. So now they're pushing it back to the last week of the year. And it says Chairman Boozman cites progress in bipartisan talks on crypto market structure legislation, postpones markup. Washington U.S. Senate Committee on Agriculture, Nutrition, and Forestry Chairman John Boozman, what a name, huh? Released the following statement after bipartisan talks progressed over the weekend. Well, they're keeping it positive, right? They're saying they progressed. And it says, I remain committed to advancing bipartisan crypto market structured legislation. We have made meaningful progress and had constructive discussions as we work toward this goal. I appreciate the leadership and engagement of Senator Booker and his team, I think that's the Democrat there, as we address these complex policy issues to finalize the remaining details and ensure the broad support for this legislation requires, or the broad support that it does require, additional time is needed before moving to markup. The committee will mark up this legislation during the last week of January. Do not be surprised if it gets pushed way back. Figure in a shutdown. Shutdown might be about a month or so. We might be looking at March for this thing. And today we get this deal from Eleanor Terrett. After that announcement, just a few days later, it says, new yield update. Banks may have won this round, she says. This is Eleanor Terrett. She says, banks may have won this round on stablecoin yield. The latest draft, page 189, this is the latest draft on the Clarity Act legislation, says that it says companies cannot pay interest just for holding balances. Isn't that what banks do? But they don't want anybody else to do that, right? So they don't want companies to pay interest for holding any balances. You can earn rewards, but only if they're tied to opening an account, like a little prize when you open an account, a toaster, perhaps, or activity like making transactions. You can't earn anything, or only if you make a transaction, then they can give you a little something. Staking, providing liquidity, putting up collateral, or participating in network governance. Senators now have 48 hours to make amendments to this text, so unclear if these provisions will stay the same for Thursday. So they got 48 hours, right? A couple days. Thursday is the deadline for that. This is part of the back and forth. And so right now, this is where we stand. It's a game to these people, but it's amazing how those Democrats really are, because they are the ones speaking for the banks, and the Republicans are fighting for our choices. Man, I really hope people are paying attention. This is what it is. That's why Liz Warren, a Democrat, had her supposed anti-crypto army. That Pocahontas is so corrupt as hell, man. Her and Gary Gensler were good buddies during that whole SEC fake lawsuit against Ripple. But let me tell you a little bit about what this Clarity Act, part of what it means. So this is another little announcement from Cynthia Lummis, who has been very pro-Bitcoin itself, really. I think she's a bought and paid for supporter of Bitcoin, but she is helping to push the overall crypto agenda forward. But of course, she definitely, if you give her rather, she'll try to give it to all these, crypto has its crooks too, and the Bitcoin people are some of them. So she says it's happening. The U.S. Senate Banking Committee announced Chairman Senator Tim Scott is moving forward on digital assets, market structure legislation, delivering clear rules that protect Main Street and keep innovation here at home. And so we're going to read this little thing. You're going to have to bear with me, guys, here. But here it says, just to give it a little finer point, this legislation is about making America the crypto capital of the world. So the next generation of jobs and innovation is built here, not overseas. When we set clear rules, we give the entrepreneurs we give the entrepreneurs the confidence to start companies, hire workers, and grow right here in the United States. We also make it harder for criminals and foreign adversaries to use new technology to rip off the Americans or undermine our financial system. After months of serious bipartisan work, it's time to move this forward and deliver real results for the American people, Chairman Tim Scott. And that's kind of exactly what they're worried about. I had talked to you about in a previous video. They need to include in these custody solutions, like I had a video on XDC earlier that talked about custody. They've got 2 new people they're partnering with. A lot of blockchains that are ISO 20022 are partnering with a lot of those kinds of companies that are creating custody solutions. And they're going to need to comply with some of these AML and KYC requirements, among others, I'm sure. But AML is anti-money laundering, and KYC is know your customer. One is to make sure that the money is not being laundered, it's not criminal, that kind of thing. And the KYC is, we want to know who you are. If you have an account, it can't just be a number. We need to know the person, the date, birthday, social, address, where the money came from, where you're employed, that kind of thing. You need to know your customer. Same kind of thing you do whenever you set up a life insurance policy, an annuity, a bank account, a CD, even when you go with eToro or what, I guess that's what it's called, or Fidelity or Schwab, set up an account with them. You got to tell them who you are. So these custody solutions are going to have to be able to comply with those laws.